Still waiting for a part for the clamp up here. We got the clamp in. It didn't quite clamp right. That's all right. You're seeing the other one. A lot of little things I want to button up on here, and I want to get the stator in here. I don't know if it's actually going to start today. It could. Let's see how far we get. Pay attention to the shirt I'm wearing, and you'll know if the day's changed. Speaking of the shirt I'm wearing, it is a Big Red Pig shirt. This is a shirt that we have for sale. If you buy it, it helps support this project. So next we're going to put the stator on, but I do want to stop and talk a little bit about electronics for a minute. I know that's going to be one thing where people are like, no, I don't like the electronics. So I'm going to try to break this down. Starting with this video, we'll be trying to get kind of the factory electronics back up to where they were. I mean, they're slightly modified. You'll see why in a minute. And then the next video, I'll kind of be doing the dual sport kit stuff. And I think the video after that, we'll be doing like the other electrical accessories. Because you gotta understand about this bike here, this bike may have came with a headlight and like a little tail light on it, but it's basically a dirt bike. It's got AC lights on it. They're very low powered, not really easy to convert them. You kind of have to go to a DC system. I know this probably sounds confusing to people, but luckily this bike is really popular. There's a lot of just plug and play stuff out there that doesn't mean you have to have a bunch of headaches. You'll see as we go, a lot of the stuff we got is not universal. It's literally made just for this bike to convert it to DC, to give it more power, to add lights, battery, key, everything. Specifically made for this bike is out there. So to start with, let's look at the stator, well, where the stator should be. I'm going to show you what we got and how that's going to help us make this into a street legal 12 volt DC dirt bike, Supermoto. So behind this fancy cover here is the flywheel. Just kind of a heavy thing that spins with the motor. Big 650's got to fire every 720 degrees, so especially when the engine's idling at low speeds, that's a long time. The crankshaft and everything has to spin before it gets to the next power cycle. Big heavy flywheel on these single cylinders is always a good idea. We use it for a couple other things too. One, somewhere on here, up here it is, there's a pickup for the ignition. The other thing you'll see about this thing is that, well, it's magnetic. In our box here we have from RM Stator, where's the label? Here's the problem, I open these boxes up because I want to see what's in them. Then I don't know how to get them back in there because the packaging is good. Back in elementary school you'd have a coil with a magnet, and you spin the thing and it creates electricity, right? Well, that's what we got going on here. Probably to most of you is Iron Man's heart. Iron Man's heart's actually just an RM Stator. They sent it out to him. It was great. It made wonderful power. There's coils of copper in here, and then this big magnet spins around them, and this is what makes our power. In stock form, only half of these coils actually have anything on them. The other ones are all blank. So in stock form, it only puts out about 100 watts. This stator should put out about 200 watts. You'll see when we go to plug them in here, we actually get two outputs, 200 watt outputs. And the idea would be that you would run 100 watts to your stock wiring harness, and the other one gives you options. Now, if this is confusing, don't worry, because literally we're just bolting things together. I'm just explaining it to you because I want you to have an understanding of how it works. But if I completely lose you, if nothing else, understand that this is a unit that's gonna bolt in here. Well, actually it bolts to the cover, and it's going to make more power. Cool thing too with their system is they give you a new pickup here. They give you everything that would be attached to the wiring harness, as well as a new rubber mount piece on here, so you're not trying to like fish anything back in. Also in the kit is a 12 volt DC regulator rectifier to hook onto that other phase, so you don't even have to try to mess with it. Now I know our dual sport kit, which you'll see in the next video, already has one of these in it. You buy this from them, you bolt it on the bike, and you're ready to rock and roll. Super, super simple. RM Stator hooked this up for us, so big thanks to them. Here's the flywheel stator cover that we also had coat or red Honda in there, matching their side. Man, this stuff looks so good. You gotta check out his Instagram because he's got all sorts of new stuff he's been doing. Or something in a triangle, not really possible to tighten it up in a pattern, so you just kind of go around. I just like to go really slow, cinching it down until it feels good. This little guy will help hold the cables in place. When this is against the case and it's bolted down, this will have some pressure against it. This is a problem you'll run into. The whole thing's magnetic, so it tries to pull it in before you're quite ready. And normally you can just kind of, I almost guarantee it's the powder coat because I can see in the two corners, it's just slightly hanging, and that's right where they're powder coated, so just ever so slightly. I can finally put oil back in this thing now too, is what that means, and I know that this one's been leaking pretty much since day one. That's why I've always had to have a rag or something underneath it. You can see there's a little towel right here. What? How did more oil get in there all of a sudden? I've already changed the oil on this bike several times. Now I'm spilling oil everywhere. This is cute. It's got that mystery oil in it where you go to change the oil and like nothing really comes out, and then later, like 3 months later, like just my new floor. It's fine. Great. Where was this oil before? Anyways, I was gonna say I need to replace this crush washer. It doesn't even look like it's the right crush washer in the first place, but you can tell it's been crushed like 20 times. Look, it's one of those kind of bikes. It's gonna do one of those kinds of oil changes. Honda was always good about putting the oil drain right over a frame point. All their cruisers are like the same way too. Might as well recheck this one too. Okay, at least I'll replace the crush washer on this one while I'm at it. The pack of bolts I bought came with pretty much all the crush washers you'd ever have to replace. Crush washers should really only be used one time. I know a lot of people use them a couple. If you really think you have to use it more than once, when you take it off, flip it over and then put it back the other way. But really, it's kind of iffy even doing that. On this side, I got this new fancy red one. It's kind of weird because it has an O-ring and it also comes with a crush washer, and the crush washer fits kind of on the outside. I guess I'm just going to use it with both. What makes this unique is it sticks to things, because that way you take the oil out and you stick it there and it holds itself in place so you don't lose it. That's the sole purpose for doing that. Also, it might collect any steel bits floating around your engine, but you have a little magnet in it and it's red. It's got a little hole in it, so if you ever go to a track that wants you to safety wire some things, you've got one bolt that's slightly easier. And like I said, it's red, which no one will really ever see, but you and I will know it's there. Maybe when I'm doing some super dank wheelies, you'll be able to see it. Before, both of these were 12 millimeters. Now one is a 14 and one is a 12. So that is slightly obnoxious, but there she is. Know what position it needs to be in. Let's just guess. Yeah, that'll work for now. Because this bike was all sort of hacked up and done sort of silly, I just went ahead and bought a new wiring harness. Just went ahead and got a whole new one. This is such a simple wiring harness. It's pretty cool. What will actually happen when we have our dual sport kit, we'll have another bit of wiring harness that kind of runs sort of next to all this. Downloaded a picture of the wiring diagram. Now, I know these things can be real complicated, people. This is probably going to throw you for a loop. If nothing else, you can look and see what color wire goes to what other color wire. You got all your wiring coming off of the stator. You got some wiring here on the actual wiring harness. And honestly, if you just stop and look at it, there's only a few things that can go at certain places, like this goes here. Start following the colors, for instance. We have got a brown wire and a sort of black and red wire with these black connectors. And look, we have a matching one right here on the wiring harness. So I'm gonna plug these in. You can follow directions, you know. Matching colors, you can probably do this. So we'll actually have a second white and green one that go to nothing right now. For right now, I'm just gonna leave these unplugged. I give you a little rubber thing here. You can try to stuff some of the wiring into this. Pincher down here to kind of pinch it all into. You don't wanna, crimp any of these wires or anything, but you definitely wanna make sure that you're getting this as clean as you can. I know it seems like, we got plenty of space, but you also gotta remember there's another wiring harness that's gonna come in here later. So the better we can sort of wire management now, the better. Our only two remaining wires are the spare power ones. Follow this down, you can see kind of will just stuff right along here. This I never got off before. This was from the last wiring harness. So if we There it is. And you know you're doing things right because this one lines up where the new one was, or the old one was. Words, whatever. And the wiring harness, if anything, seems like there's a little bit of slack in it, so we're not stretching it. That's always good. This thing has a ground that goes to the other side. We've already connected that. This comes up here and plugs in. Just keep following those wiring harness on up to get through here. I've gone to my little wiring diagram and looked. What we need to see is where to hook the kill switch up. Now, one of these is for power for the headlight. What we need to do is plug into the green wire and this black wire. And what that will do for us is ground the ignition out. When you press it, it just simply grounds the ignition out. But if you're still unsure, there's a really easy way to check our work. We grab a spark plug here, went ahead and grabbed a new one. We're gonna plug it in, we're gonna ground this to the frame, and we're gonna see if we can get some spark to go. Now, I already filled the engine up full of oil. Obviously, we're not trying to start it yet. I don't have any coolant in it. A handful of other small little odds and ends that need to be buttoned up before we can fire the engine. That's not gonna tell us we did everything right, but it will show us that we did a lot of the stuff right. Now, because this engine has set for such a long time, a minute ago I went ahead and put a little bit of oil right down the spark plug hole. It's a little cap full of oil right in there. You ever seen Jay Leno's garage? He's always like, this is only a plunger, this thing here that puts a dollop of oil right in the piston. So I just did that a few minutes ago, let it sit, so that way we know that the rings have got some oil on it. This engine hasn't set it for a massive amount of time, but never a bad idea if you know one's been setting for a little bit. Throw a little oil in there. You always gotta remember too, if you're gonna do this to check the spark, you always wanna ground this thing. You wanna be touching the spark plug to the metal of the frame somewhere, or really the engine. Not only will it not spark, but you could possibly blow the coil out if you're sending power to it and it's got nowhere to discharge. Now in this case, we don't have a fuel tank hooked up or anything right now. But just for good measure, I'm gonna put the spark plug over on the other side of the motor, away from this hole. Because if you're ever testing this and you've got everything hooked up and you're kicking it or turning it over, you can actually get, fumes of fuel and air popping out of the spark plug hole. And if you have a little spark plug over there ticking, you probably won't blow something up, but you'll get a pretty good little flare up there. I've seen it, it's fun. That should work right there. Because there's no spark plug in, it should kick over. Really easy right here. And we're looking to see some spark. So now I'm gonna hold the kill switch button down. I'm gonna do the same thing and let's see if I kill the spark. Let go of it again and we'll do it again. So we should see spark now. There's spark, I'm gonna push the button in. Nice. I see guys that will build their own computers but are scared to mess with the wiring on their bike. It's like, dude, trust me, that's way more complicated. This is so simple. Normally, you would fill it, start it, and see where your oil level sits. Turn it over a few times. Let's see if I've dropped the oil level in it. Some of these, like the Suzuki's, they tell you not to thread it in. You get nothing if I don't thread it in. The cool thing with these dry sumps like this, one, they hold more oil, and two, there's almost no chance you'll ever be at a weird angle where the oil pressure is not going to be feeding into the pump. You're not going to be starving this thing of oil. Pumped it a few times, and now there's no oil on the sticks. That's good. It means we've pumped it through the system. The range on this thing is crazy. Lower, upper, and just get it somewhere in here. That's the other thing with these dry sumps. Not that you should run them low on oil, but they can definitely get away with it if they had to. A little bit of a situation going on here. You see the toolbox, the bike, and that's all over there because of a little bit of a leak in my wall. I found the leak, it was in here, and they came and repaired it this morning. The people did. The house is under warranty. Talked to them, they're like, well, luckily it's in your garage, so it's not an immediate issue. And I'm like, for me it kind of is. This is sort of where I work, so the sooner we can get this done, the better. Here's what we're gonna do. I think I'm gonna move the car out, move the toolbox over, because it is on wheels. Hey, who thought of that? Somebody was smart. We're gonna keep on wrenching, I guess, as much as we can. Real quick, guys, we actually swapped back to the old upper triple. Remember we had that one with the dampener in it, with the clamp, and it just wasn't working quite right. They sent me a couple different clamps. Things aren't just lining up perfectly, so they asked I send the whole thing back. They're gonna kind of go over it, revise it, and we'll revisit that down the road. They're definitely trying really hard, but we gotta move on, so for now I've just stuck the old one back on. And before we can start the engine, we need to fill the engine with coolant, and if we're gonna fill the engine with coolant, we need to go ahead and install this guy. This is a sensor that's inside the dash kit. You'll see in a video coming up soon. I wanna put it here because the thermostat's here, so we're gonna have to cut this line. So as a safety margin, I'm gonna go a couple nubs past where I think I need to, because that's easy to take a little more off than to add a little more back. And here we go, we're committed now. Right through that pretty M there. How disappointing. And we can kind of do the same thing now on the other side. Look at this, does that make more sense having it that way? I guess it doesn't. Now that I have it on that side, that doesn't work at all. Oh my goodness, that's my phone. This is the best ringtone. You'll always hear this one. This thing takes a ton of fluid with these bigger radiators. I might have to get another one of these. Alright, this was full before. It's still looking full. I was really hoping that was gonna burp out a big old bubble in there. So before I can put the gas tank back on, I have to rebuild this thing. This is the fuel petcock. I didn't make up that nasty name, that's what it's called. Of course, not only is it disgusting, and for some reason it's missing the screen that goes on top. I don't know how that even goes missing. It leaks. And if you've been paying attention to the build at this point, you shouldn't be surprised if something's crap. Luckily, they make rebuild kits for them. It's actually cheaper than buying a whole petcock. There's a bunch of really like super cheapo ones on Amazon, but when I looked up reviews on those, it seemed like that wasn't the thing to do. If you don't mind doing a little work, this seemed to be the best option as far as your money goes. We can get a Phillips out. These are always, yeah, there we go. You always want to cradle it in your hand, so if you slip, you absolutely will go to the hospital. You know, I always wondered how a petcock or a fuel valve works. A lot of people think there's like a reserve point in their actual tank. No, that's not how it works. When you're in the on position, it's going to pull from the high point, and when you switch to reserve, see there's that gap around here, and it starts pulling fuel from the lower point. So basically, once the fuel drops past a certain level, the engine will start kind of choking up. I'm not getting fuel, and you flip over, and then you get on this other one. So that's how that works. Put these things in order as they come off of here. The screen goes in there. Unfortunately, the rebuild kit didn't come with that little screen because it's just not something I expect you to be losing. I don't know, it looks like someone broke it off at some point. I might actually have one of those. Look at this in the random wide world of sports. I think this actually came off a Honda. Oh, that fits right in there. I'm gonna put just a dab of 2-stroke oil in the cap here. Whoa, I'm funny. Just a little dab to lubricate these just a little bit. This is one of those seals that like the fuel itself is meant to be kind of the lubricant. Reserve, off, and on. Got our stock used gas tank. Got this from one of our Patreons, super cool. Before I assemble it, I need to try to clean it up a little bit. Good thing is about motorcycle plastics is they're just dyed. They're the same color all the way through. Soapy water and some like 1000 grit sandpaper. Gonna stick that in there. We're gonna see if we can't smooth this out a little bit. There's still a handful of real big scratches, but after going over it's definitely a lot smoother, but you will notice they're sort of white and chalky looking now. That's all right, because now we're gonna hit it with a heat gun. I've got you back here by the tail because I want you to remember Honda red isn't like super red. So, woo, it's actually not too bad looking, guys. It's still got some like scratches and stuff on it, of course, if you really got like real close to it. But I think from anybody else seeing it standpoint going down the road, ripping some dank wheelies, that I was a little nervous after we sanded it and turned all white, but I think it's good. I'm gonna stick the petcock on there and well, things are about to get interesting. We extensively used WD-40 to clean this thing. There's all sorts of random grease as temporary glue in places. There's a lot of reasons this thing's probably gonna smoke a whole lot. I just took it around the block, Just kind of feeling some things out. The idle was just way too low. I was messing with it last night. Suburban Delinquent told me this isn't a woman's shirt, but I don't know. He's from the West Coast. They do things different. These kind of sleeves don't seem right on a man. It's cooled back down now. I was able to check things like the coolant, the oil. Everything seems good. One other thing that I do need to check, make sure my second power source there is kicking off AC power, which I'm sure it is, but I'd like to check it and make sure. Oh yeah, also on Instagram, someone told me to try to start it with flip-flops on. So let's try a half choke. The idle seems a little bit like it's kind of hunting right now. I try to get it low, but as soon as you give it throttle, it starts to rev up, or go below that, it seems like it kind of wants to start stalling. So I think I need to look at the side screw. I believe can adjust the lower speed idling fuel circuit. So what I'll probably need to do is fire that one up and kind of play with it a little bit, see if I can't get it to run a little smoother. Pretty easy though to do. But for right now, we see the electronics are working, which is good. We see the carbs working. We see it's good now. We got the extra power for the dual sport kit, which we'll put on next video. We'll have turnkey, turn signals, horn, the whole fucking 9 yards. So super pumped about that. Bike looks cool. It sounds really good. And my neighbors hate me. So next video should be coming at y'all real soon. Things should be moving pretty quickly here, although they are going to come tear all this drywall out here and replace it. That might screw things up a little. Hopefully not.